outside. Very quick introduction on my part. My name is Graham Marley. I'm the current chair of the UKATA, or the UK Asbestos Training Association. I'm sure you've heard of UKATA. There are some UKATA members here today, and I'm sure most of you have probably done, or some of you have done some UKATA asbestos training in the past. Now, the presentation I'll be talking about is asbestos training, and I've entitled it As Clear as Mud. The reason for that is there seems to be quite a bit of confusion in the industry about what type of training, say, ground workers obviously will require to undertake their work activities. So what I will do is I'll have a look at the existing arrangements for the last few years, and of course what UKATA are going to try to fill that gap in the marketplace. Some of the comments we often hear is, I'm a ground worker, I work on soils, what training do I need? Is it awareness, or is it non-licensed works? There's a lot of confusion with that. I only drive a digger, I don't need asbestos training, I'm working in a machine, so do I need any asbestos training? And then of course, one common one is, I'm only working with soils, potentially coming across contaminated asbestos in the soils, do I actually need to be trained? So, in theory, it is as clear as mud in the industry, so I'm going to try and set the record straight with regard to that. Now, my presentation will enable us to have a look at the training available to ground workers and people working on contaminated lands, to look at the training needs for ground workers, and of course identify the correct training course. I'm also going to add in a small presentation towards the end. Is there a need for practical training? And the reason behind that, there's been a lot of chatter in industry of late about possibly looking at e-learning courses for non-licensed work. And of course, with e-learning, as I'm sure you're aware, there is no practical training, and the issues regarding that. So there's a little study been done, so I'll try and give you a quick presentation on that study. It will be presented to UKATA. UKATA will publish that study, and hopefully that will obviously relay any sort of fears about the need for practical training. So currently, where do we sit? Well, the current regulations we have is the Control of Asbestos Regulations 2012. And the ACOP that goes with that is L143. So Regulation 10, if we looked at Regulation 10, it breaks the courses down into 3 types of training. So we've got awareness, non-licensed and licensable. Sometimes referred to as Category A, Category B, Category C. We've moved away from that. That is the correct terminology from the ACOP. And if you're as old as me, you might remember Category 1, Category 2, and of course Category 3, as it was many, many years ago. Now, if we read the paragraph taken out of the ACOP, for asbestos awareness. It says asbestos awareness training is required for those individuals who are likely to disturb the fabric of the building. As we all know, ground workers don't work in buildings, they are working on land, they're working in soils. The buildings are probably gone in most cases. Sometimes the buildings are gone and possibly been buried into the ground 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. So the awareness course currently laid down does target the construction industry. The non-licensed works training, people undertaking non-licensed work such as short duration works, small works, asbestos cement removal, drilling holes, etc. There is a guidance for that, that's called HSG 210. And again, that does concentrate more so on the drilling holes in Artex, lifting of floor tiles, removal of corrugated roof sheets, etc. And then of course the licensable works for asbestos. I'm not going to go into too much detail in that. They know what they should be doing, they know what they're allowed to do. But it's obviously ground workers, some ground workers already have a licence and they should be considered competent. Now if you look at the pictures on the right, which are generally provided on asbestos awareness courses, we have a toilet system in the building, we have a piece of asbestos cement on the left there in a building, we have a roof sheet on a building, we have some AIB there in the roof space in a building, and of course spray coating in a building. When building contractors visit these buildings, this is what they see, and this is how they will actually see the asbestos. The problem with ground workers, they won't see it like that. They will see it in a very different condition and a very different state. So for example, land surveyors inspecting the ground, geoenvironmental consultants who possibly taking samples, ground investigation workers, ground workers. Now ground workers, we can look at ground workers maybe laying foundations for buildings. We could also look at people putting drainage systems in. We could even go to the extent of looking at a fencing contractor who is actually putting holes in the ground, and of course they could come across asbestos, but they're not going to see it in its installed form on a building. And then of course the land remediation contractors, These are the people who are obviously going to make those suitable remediation controls, etc. And of course maybe clean the soil and treat the soil. And again, the photographs on the right of the screen. Sorry. You can see some concrete and of course pieces of asbestos cement in the concrete. There's a pile of concrete on the third photograph. Again, there's the asbestos, probably asbestos cement, but we can find other products. And then the bottom picture shows a contractor holding a piece of asbestos that they've actually identified. So from that we can see that there was an omission really for ground workers. So a number of years ago, UKATA decided to try and fill a gap with ground workers and people dealing with asbestos in soils. So what was born out of that was two courses. The two courses, the first one is the one on the left, the asbestos in soils. This is an awareness, so this would be an additional bolt-on to your basic asbestos awareness. So that would be half a day, and the remainder half of the day will obviously cover all those specific aspects regarding asbestos in soils. So looking at the origins of the contamination, how we identify soil analysis, remediation options, etc. Primarily aimed at supervisors, trades, personnel, and of course remediation employees. We then decided to add an additional course with that to take it to a higher level. And this course would be aimed at managers, clients, client agents, principal designers, etc. That goes into a bit more detail regarding the legal framework, looking at the legislation, CDM, the Environment Protection Act in a bit more detail, how the site survey obviously would be undertaken, and of course with the long awaited HSG 248, which does actually cover soil analysis and of course soil investigation, picking up on that proposed document. Materials management planning, inadvertent identification, and looking at some typical case studies. So a bit more intense in that sense. So that would be, in theory, again, a half duration of the asbestos awareness. Now from that, obviously, UKATA can then generate, UKATA members can then generate their certificates, which are obviously UKATA branded, but specific to the course obviously that's been undertaken, as opposed to just the normal asbestos course, normal asbestos awareness course. So the UKATA brand there, which obviously is well recognised in industry, and of course it gives trust to industry that the training has been delivered in accordance with the very strict standards that UKATA members obviously have to abide by, and of course provide that quality of that training. Now, as you can see from those courses, they were primarily developed for the professionals in the industry and of course the clients. And going back to those courses, it probably seems a little bit too intense for the average ground worker or the fencing contractor or the individual excavator driver, etc. And of course, specific certification was required. So we looked at this further, and one aspect we considered obviously was the current guidance, HSG 210, which you can see on the screen there. And of course, this looks at two main sections. So we have the EMs, which is the equipment guidance, and equipment method sheets, which looks at the generics, if you like, the RPE, the PPE, the decontamination, etc. But primarily aimed at the construction sector, doing small works with asbestos. And then within the same document, there are 38 sheets, which again cover the tasks that need to be undertaken. And within those tasks, for example, we've got removing floor tiles, drilling Artex, removing roof sheets, removing cisterns, etc. And again, it's all related to buildings. Now, we could utilise some of that guidance produced by the HSE, but looking through HSG 210, there is one A sheet which is probably the closest we're going to get to ground workers, which would be A11, which is removing asbestos cement debris. But it might not be asbestos cement debris, it might be maybe some rope, or it might be some old floor tiles or a floor slab, which maybe needs rubbing out. So we're going to have to make this a little bit more specific. But the EM series taken out of the guidance, things like the wetting techniques, that's pretty standard. The dust suppression activities, whether it be in the building or whether it be on the ground, will remain the same. EM6 looks at the PP and the RPE, it's going to be the same. Decontamination isn't necessarily always going to be the same, and I'll look at that in a second or two. And waste is waste. The things that obviously for the ground workers doing non-licensed work, what we can remove from that is the vacuum cleaner. They're not going to use the vacuum cleaner on the soils. And of course EM3, which looks at building mini enclosures, it's not something we're going to do. So the idea in principle was to utilise some of the guidance, but of course add in some additional aspects which are relevant to ground workers. Now, depending on the site and the initial survey, depends on the contamination, the likely exposure, etc. it may be required that decontamination units are used on the site. Now, there's no reference to decontamination units in HST 210, and decontamination units have two purposes really or two uses on contaminated lands. Sometimes they're used on site just for emergencies, which is fine, and sometimes if there's a hotspot or a red zone, they will obviously use the decontamination unit to enter the red zone hotspot and then come back through the decontamination unit. So more specific training would be required for those types of individuals using decontamination units. Now, the guidance for decontamination units is taken from HST 247, which is the licensed contractor's guide. And again, that is aimed at the licensed asbestos removal contractor, and they would have enclosures, they would have airlocks, they would have vacuum cleaners in their preliminary decontamination. So we need to try to devise a way of decontaminating ground workers who are going through from the red zone to the outside and vice versa, entering those contaminated zones. So we already have a syllabus for asbestos awareness. We also have a syllabus for non-licensed works. Rather than reinvent the wheel, what we have actually done is created a specific addendums to the original syllabi for ground workers. The first one being the asbestos awareness. Now, pretty much the content is the same, however, with the addendum, the principles behind it are to remove certain aspects regarding buildings, add in certain aspects regarding contaminated land, soils, etc., remove aspects regarding the UKATA emergency procedures, and add in specific emergency procedures for ground workers if they've got a decontamination unit on site or additional preliminary emergency decontamination procedures. Again, it's the same duration of course, 3 to 4 hours, test at the end of it, but rather than showing the pictures I showed you earlier of the corrugated roof sheets on a roof, it would show the pictures of the asbestos cement in the ground, obviously so they can spot it. Obviously with this course they're not allowed to work with asbestos. We also did the same with the non-licensed works. We used the existing syllabi, but what we did do again, we removed the reference to the buildings and removed the reference to the emergency procedures, but we maintained the reference to the control measures, the RPE, the PPE, but of course looking at the different zones that they may have to enter, hotspots, red zones, a bit more concentration on the plan of work, making sure it's a suitable plan of work and job and site specific, because again there are no specific tasks that we can use for this, but the practical aspects regarding that training obviously will remain the same, RPE, control measures, decontamination, and of course bagging. What we get from that, or what your employees can achieve from that, is a specific course for ground workers. The title of the course, obviously, on the left is Asbestos Awareness for Ground Workers, which is specific, and then, of course, the same for the non-licensed works, and again, quoting the ground workers. So ground workers can achieve the correct training now with the correct certification, as opposed to just going through the motions of having just the basic asbestos awareness course, which will look at buildings as opposed to the contaminated soils, etc. Now, UKATA prides itself on practical training, certainly for non-licensed works and also for the licensed contractors that we train. However, due to this chatter that was on the web communities a few months ago, we decided to have a look at do we need to do practical training, certainly on a refresher basis. And a recent study was carried out by a member at Asbestos Training Limited to try and highlight the need for practical training. Now, the scope of that was to analyse the knowledge of the delegates based on their refresher courses. And there was a range of delegates attending the courses and took part in this study. Unfortunately, it was done in quite a short space of time, and we may roll this out further, but 72 individuals took part, and that did include ground workers, civil engineers, and of course a variation of the construction industry. The aim of that was to assess that need and of course determine how much was forgotten with regard to theory and with regard to practical. So 35 question training needs analysis was undertaken. 22 of those questions were based on theory, and 13 of those questions were based on how to undertake practical aspects of working with asbestos. Now, 6 of those questions were related to the control measure. The reason that was so high as opposed to the others is obviously the control measure is very important. It's the first line of defence and making sure we've got the proper measures in place. 3 on RPE, and you can read that on the screen there. Now, from that, we also asked the question how many years these individuals have been in the construction industry. And 61% of our study have been in the industry for more than 15 years, and that was again a mixture of ground workers, civil engineers, and various different trades. We also then asked the question of how many years they've actually been undertaking work with asbestos-containing materials, and that showed that 33% of our chosen individuals were working with it for nearly 15 years, and then the rest, obviously, again, a third of 6 to 10 years and less than 5 years. But of course, what we also wanted to ask was how regular the work they were undertaking with asbestos-containing materials. Were they experienced? Can we define experience in the industry? Ironically, what we learned from this, that 3% of the 72 had worked with asbestos on a pretty much daily basis. 54% of the 72 only undertook tasks less than 4 jobs in a year. So can we quantify that being experience if all they're doing is 3 or 4 jobs in a year? Now, the TNA results that we achieved from this, out of 22 questions, 86% of the delegates got less than 50% of the theory questions incorrect. They were trained last year, some of them were doing this training for 5, 10, 15 years, and they still forget the information. So that does send a message that refresher training does have a place in the industry. On the practical aspects, 13 practical questions, 73% of the delegates got less than 50% correct on the practical questions. They weren't difficult questions, they were simple questions like explain how you would decontaminate, how you would remove your overalls. Simple things like how they take, when they take the gloves off, how they take the overalls off in the right manner, turning them inside out. But bear in mind, they are only doing 3 or 4 jobs maybe in a 12-month period. Now from that, we then broke that down into the 4 aspects of control, the practical, and 91% of delegates failed to obtain more than 50% correct answers on decontamination. 83 on waste, 69 on PPE and RPE, couldn't maintain their respirator properly, didn't understand about fit checking and face fit testing, etc., and 72% on the control measures. At the end, obviously, we tested them in accordance with the requirements, and they all passed, but only 3 got 100% pass there. The average there was anywhere between 80 and 90% out of the 30 question test. Now, what we actually did from this, we took one individual. We chose one individual specifically for this presentation, and we chose a ground worker. And the ground worker was 15 years in the industry and had been working with asbestos occasionally, a few times a year, for 5 years. What we found from that was 31% of the practical questions that individual ground worker got incorrect. And of course, they only got 31% of the practical questions. And that covered decontamination, PPE, procedures, waste, etc. So this does actually demonstrate there is a need for practical training, and there is a need obviously on the refreshers to undertake that practical training. So the conclusions we learned from that, other trades who regularly work with asbestos still fail to recall the practical measures. Maybe it's complacency, maybe they're not doing enough of this, so we can't really consider them to be experienced. The correct decontamination had the massive failure, the hugest failure that we found, because they weren't understanding the process in how they decontaminate. Now this wasn't decontamination inside a decontamination unit, this was a decontamination just from doing basic tasks of taking the overalls off. So there is that need to assess the practical requirements. Now, UKATA's position on this is that practical training is important, and we emphasised this a few years ago when we changed our non-licensed works course and we added in an additional half day. It wasn't welcomed in the industry, it certainly wasn't welcomed by members because it meant an additional half day. But you can see by that study there is a massive need for practical training, not just for the trades, but certainly for ground workers. Thank you very much. That was about 20 minutes. Any easy questions? This always happens to me. Nobody likes asking me questions. Come on, Gareth, answer the question. Yes, sir.
How long will these courses last? Because the asbestos awareness is 1 year. Will these be longer?
That's fine. So they'll remain the same as the asbestos awareness for building trades and non-licensed building trades. So there will still be an expiry date on those certificates. For licensed and non-licensed people who work with asbestos, that is a mandatory every 12 months anyway. There's no way we can get around that. For the asbestos awareness